All right. Thank you, Michelle. Countdown is finished, and Michelle did her part in the countdown. So, hello, Internet. Hello, everyone, one and all, who came tonight to Broken and Remade. It's actually fitting how small of a group we have tonight because of the message I feel the Lord has for me. This is and I'm serious too, I really almost wanted a small group tonight. Because I want to talk a little bit about focusing in on, I named it Mind Your Business, okay? Mind Your Business. But kind of like on focusing in on our business that God would have us to focus in on. Sometimes I think that there's a tendency for all of us to look around and see what other people are doing and see what other groups are doing or other people have and comparing ourselves and kind of basing our happiness and our how well we're doing on what other people are doing versus what we're really supposed to be doing. And there's a section in 2 Corinthians that we're going to go to in chapter 10 where I think Paul addresses this very, very, very well. And I think as far as a broken and remade message, this is so important, I think, for our mental health, for our analyzing how our life is going. And Paul has it in here for us to learn from this. And it's so important because in today's day and age especially, we're also connected to everybody else. We have telephones, we have Facebook, we have, the internet has connected everybody in the world. So we can kind of watch what everyone else is doing. That's a really popular thing in entertainment, is watching reality TV, right? Like, what is reality TV? It's looking into other people's lives and kind of paying attention to what they're doing, right? And it's really become an obsession for some people to watch how other people live. It's one of the reasons why entertainers are so popular. Like there's entertainment television or behind the scenes kind of shows. Those are really popular because we like to see how other people are living, what other people have, what other people are doing. And it's really a world of minding everybody else's business and not our own. I mean, that's kind of how the world is today. Everyone's kind of into gossip and news. I mean, if you think about how news works now compared to how it used to be. It used to be you'd wait till 6 o'clock in the evening and you knew it was time to turn the news on and see what was happening in your local area. And it was always local news, right? And then all of a sudden there came a day where there were some television channels who decided, hey, I got a great idea. Let's have 24/7 news coverage. Like all day, every day, we can watch what's happening around the world. That didn't always exist. Remember, it was made up. It was invented at some point, like a great idea. We never had that. We had our local paper. We would open, believe it or not, kids, we would open a printed paper that covered our local area. Some of them were just community papers. Like it would talk about, within a certain city, what was going on in the city. We still get those. Like the View is one that they call it, whatever city you're in. And you can pay attention to your local community. But we've grown from that community paper to the newspaper to see. Then all of a sudden there's a world section. But now we're on TV where we can go to CNN or Fox News or whatever your preference is and watch 24/7 what is happening in the world. Go on the internet. A lot of times the very first page that pops up is like MSN or one of these news networks, and we can instantly see the headlines, the breaking news. The second something happens, I can pay attention to it. I can look at it. And we are so ingrained in this society of knowing everybody else's business, what people have, what people do. If someone buys a new house, a celebrity, right? We instantly know, well, this person bought a new mansion, or this person got this new car, or this person that, this girlfriend and boyfriend. I mean, if you watch celebrity news, you find out who's dating who from day to day. You can pay attention to so many people's lives. We're a bunch of busybody gossip, know everything people now. That's just kind of how the world is made. I sat, there's a lot of times I'll sit at a coffee shop. I love my local coffee shop. I'll name it Fireside Coffee in case that sponsorship comes through and they pay for me saying Fireside every time I say Fireside in Swartz Creek, Michigan. They're not going to do that. But anyway, they still charge me, and I keep trying to get them to give me free drinks, and it doesn't work. I love you guys, though. And if you ever want, okay, anyway, carry on. So I sit in the coffee shop, and there's times where I've really started to listen around conversations. Michelle hates when I do this, by the way. I have really good ears, and I'll hear everything going on in a room, and I'll be paying attention to everyone's talks. But what I've noticed... Oh, it's called eavesdropping, yells the psychologist, trying to correct my ways here, Michelle. And so I'm eavesdropping. But one thing I've noticed, okay, that has changed through the years and grown through the years because we can communicate and know so much stuff, is when you really listen, and I want to challenge you to do this. Like if you're in a restaurant, eavesdrop. Start listening to people around you. And what you're going to hear are things like this. Well, you know what she did? You know what he said? Do you know what she did? Do you know what she said? Do you know what they're doing now? Oh, do you know what happened to so-and-so? Did you hear? And if you listen, many of our conversations are driven by that kind of talk. And even our own talk, we better listen to ourselves, because how many times do we talk with our loved ones or friends and go, well, you know what I heard about so-and-so, and oh man, we better pray for so-and-so because guess what happened yesterday to them? And we're so focused on all these people around us. And I want us, as we read this section of 2 Corinthians chapter 10, to see how Paul is trying to help us understand that we need to focus. We need to gain control of our minds, become sober-minded in the sense of really doing what you're supposed to be doing in the realm of influence God has you in to deal with. We are really stressing ourselves out, worrying about so many more people and things than we're really supposed to be worrying about. We stress ourselves right out. We think we have to do a bigger part. We think we have to do more because look what everyone else is doing. We think we have to outcompete each other in charitable work and different things. And we start comparing and looking at, well, they're doing this, so we got to do it better. And churches do that. You know that? There's like competition in churches. I was joking around with a group yesterday. We did the Flushing Parade yesterday. And, I was just playing. There's a church that's down the road from us, not too far from here, and they were in the parade, and they were like 2 rows away from us. And I was joking and ran over to their group because I know a couple of them that are in that church and become really good friends with a couple of them. And I walked over and I covered my First Baptist shirt up and I went, hey, am I allowed over here? Because, I'm from that other side over there. And we were laughing about it, and they were laughing, and I talked and shook the hands of my friends and just said hello. And I said, well, I better get back to my turf over there because I don't want a gang war. And I said, I don't want this to turn into West Side Story, and just kind of walked away from them, And they were all laughing, and I'm laughing, but I'm playing with that. But at the same time, it's amazing in churches even how we have to compare ourselves with each other. Well, that church is running 1,000. We're only running 300. What are we doing wrong compared to them? Look at what they have. Look what we don't have. They're growing. We're not growing. I mean, what's wrong with us? Does the Lord love them more than us? Can we study what they're doing? That's a big thing right now in the church. We have these Bill Hybels of the world and these guys that are these big church like guys who talk about how to run the perfect church so it will grow and become this wonderfully big thing. We see the mega churches and think we need to be more like them, and we start doing seminars and we start doing conferences and we start like watching videos of these guys like we want to be like these big boys, and again, it's infiltrating even in the church this desire to start stretching into other people's responsibilities and not our own. And that's harmful. It's really, really harmful. So when we go to 2 Corinthians chapter 10, starting in verse 1, first off, Paul starts this section talking about himself, okay, how he as a man is. And then also he starts to go into the battle that we're in, the way we're supposed to battle in this world for Christ, okay? And I want to like focus in on some of his talk about how we're actually supposed to be doing this. Excuse me, I had some Burger King that just wanted to make an appearance. Forgive me. All right, so, oh, by the way, Burger King, sponsorship, huh? I just mentioned you. Anyway, we're not that popular. So, verse 1. It says, "Now I, Paul, myself, am pleading with you." Okay, so whatever he's about to write, he is literally saying, listen carefully, I'm pleading with you. I want you to grasp this. I want you to get this. I need you to understand. Okay, so he's writing a letter to the Corinthian church. This is a second letter he wrote to them after 1 Corinthians. And he's telling these Corinthians, I am pleading, I am begging you to listen to me. Okay, and that's what I'm doing right now. I really want to beg you to listen carefully to what this message entails, because it's so important. I'm begging you by the meekness and gentleness of Christ. Okay? So in his pleading, he's like, you need to please understand that when I come to you, I am trying to be meek, humble, gentle, as Christ would be. You know, remember when Christ came to the earth, he was meek. He was gentle most of the time. There were times where he came up and butted heads against some other people. And I do want to point out that those people he was battling and fighting were not the sinners, were not the ones who were struggling. They were the ones who thought they had it all figured out. The prideful ones that were like, well, we have the law. We know what we're doing. We're the churchy people. We know how to do this. We don't need you. We are the authority, right? That's who Jesus began to fight against. That's who he was pushing against and flipping tables over on, right? Not on them, but flipping their tables like these leaders and these people who were acting better than all the other people, right? And so he's talking about the meekness and gentleness of Christ. And he said about himself now, listen, who in presence, when you see me, okay, in your presence, I am lowly among you. But being absent, I'm bold toward you. So what Paul's pointing out here, he's saying, listen, I'm just a lowly guy. Like, I'm not anything special. I'm humbled. I am no greater than you. I am not better than you. I am coming to you lowly. Like when you look at Paul, and this is an amazing thing, and we're gonna read some about this. When you look at Paul, these people didn't see a mighty strong man with, well built and beautiful. You know what they saw? They saw a man with some kind of eye condition, some kind of something that was wrong with his body. He talks about that in one of his letters, and he says he was lowly. And these people that he wrote letters to were like, man, these letters are so powerful and strong, but man, when he's around, he's like really nobody special. He's just this guy. Like, he's just a man. Like, that doesn't look all that great. But his letters, woo, they're so strong and mighty, but I mean, look at him. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm nobody. I'm just honestly an out of shape, small little man. I mean, I'm 5'6" and a half, all right? Listen, I at one point in my life thought I was 5'8", and I actually got humbled so bad when I went up to a door and I etched on the door to measure how tall I was because I was trying to lose some weight, and I was realizing the numbers weren't matching, and I'm like, man, something's wrong. Well, what was wrong was This little chihuahua-sized man thought he was bigger than he was, and all the math was off because I was 2 inches shorter than I thought I was. I'm a little guy. I am not intimidating. I am not strong and mighty, all right? I'm just this small little guy, and I come oftentimes yelling and screaming and hollering from the Bible as if I have some kind of power and authority, right? But listen, when you look at me, I'm not much of a manly man. I'm trying to grow the beard to make it look like I am. See how it's getting? See, I'm going to disguise myself as a manly man. And on video, you can't tell I'm 5'6". I look mighty and strong on the video. No, anyway. But I'm not. In presence, I'm lowly. And in presence, Paul was lowly. He's nobody special. It says, but, in verse 2, I beg you. There he is again. I'm pleading with you. I beg you. I need you to understand this. He says that when I am present with you, I may not be bold with that confidence by which I intend to be bold against some who think of us as if we walked according to the flesh. So what's Paul's frustration here? He's like really frustrated with these people he's writing to that look at him and judge him according to his flesh. Like just as a man, as a person. And there's a group of people in this Corinthian church who analyze everything as just the flesh of it. And when we look at each other and we talk about each other and we look into people's lives, a lot of times we just analyze by the material. Like how much money they have, how they look on the outside, how they talk, how they appear. That's how a lot of people think in this world. And that's what we're doing when we're looking into these shows. We like to look at the appearances of everything. Like how much money do these people have? How big's their house? Look at their cars. And you want to see these reality TV programs of all these glamorous people. We watch things like The Bachelor, Bachelorette. I don't watch them. But what are we doing? We're watching this attractive person dating all these attractive people because we want to see them like match up perfectly because it's such a dream to be with a good-looking man or a good-looking woman. And we're judging by the flesh, by the temporal, okay? And it says, verse 3, for though we walk in the flesh, like I'm in my body and I do live on this earth. I have to live my life, okay? I have a job. I have to make money. I have to eat. I mean, there are things I have to deal with because I'm in my flesh, okay? It says, but we do not war according to the flesh. Like that's not my fight, my battle. My battle is not this earth. It's something deeper than this. It's something spiritual. It's something heavenly. It's something for people's souls, okay? And here's the thing, verse 4. For the weapons of war, our warfare, are not carnal. Carnal meaning of this earth. That's not my weapon. But mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. See, for some reason, I have to say this, it's not going to make everyone happy, but for some reason, the church has become overly obsessed with the weapons of this earth. I don't know how this happened. I don't exactly understand this. That the Christian cry has been related to, this weaponizing, preparing for war, and being ready to battle. And so we have many, many Christians who have become obsessed about guns. Bob, leave that alone, buddy. Leave that alone. Well, I can't leave that alone. Because here's what's happening. We're looking at earthly things as if this is where our fight is. But we're losing the spiritual battle within ourselves because we're so hyper-focused on the things of this earth. I'm so concentrated on my guns of war that I have forgotten that the power exists in the Word of my God, in His Spirit within me, in His work of ministry He has for me. I am going to arm myself and be ready for war because if they storm our church doors, I'm going to be ready, bless God. That's such a wrong focus. And it's harming us. Because we're losing the spiritual sight we're supposed to have for people's hearts, for people's spirits, for people's inner person. It's how depression and anxiety are running so high is because we're not nurturing and paying attention to the inner soul of man and woman. They're crying out. They're running to psychologists. They're running to doctors. They're running to pills. They're running to alcohol. They're running to sex because they can't find where healing exists for them because we're so focused on earthly things and our war that we're not going after and helping to fight battles in the spiritual realm where all this stuff is attacking us. And that's what Paul's trying to point out here. He's like, that's not where our weapons are. They're not carnal. They're mighty in God for pulling down strongholds. Verse 5, casting down arguments and every high thing that what? Exalts itself or raises itself up against the knowledge of God, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. And then being ready to punish all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. Do you get Paul's point here? He's saying, look at me. I'm weak. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. But I'm at war. But the war I'm talking about is not this carnal, earthly battle that everyone's hyper-focusing on. My battle is an internal struggle spiritually and emotionally and in my soul. And that is the cry of the world right now. The cry of the world. They can't understand how to stabilize their lives because everything's so unstable in this world. It's a broken earth. They're not going to find perfect stability on this broken earth. They're not. We are not. It has to be from God. And what happens is, when we fight this war, that's how we cast down these arguments and fights and struggles and anything that tries to exalt itself or put itself above the knowledge of our God. Nothing is higher than the knowledge of who God is. Because God is love. God is grace. God is mercy. God is healing. God is exactly who everyone is looking for in this world. That's what they're looking for. That is the solution. A man, a being, God, who sent his Son to this earth to die for our souls so he could come and indwell us through the Holy Spirit to heal us from the inside out. This is the power. This is the healing. And we're so hyper-focused on the things of this earth, what everyone else is doing. How can we get better spiritually? Let's watch this seminar. Well, let's watch this program. But we're not learning of God, the knowledge of God. You need to get to know Him better. You must. You have to know God more and more and more and more. And as you do, that's where healing exists for you. That's where it's at. And it says, verse 7, do you look at things according to the outward appearance? Boy, do we. We judge people so much on the outside. Even in our churches. There's a lot of people who don't go to church anymore because of the church's way they looked at them and made them feel. There are people who have run from the church, thinking they're running from God. I hate God. I don't want anything to do with God. But they don't know God. But what has happened is we have put something above God in their minds, and that's the way we act and the way we treat them and the way we handle things. And they think that that represents our God, but it doesn't. That is us really, really messing up. Because it says here, you look according to the outward appearance. Someone comes off the street and they're not dressed very well. Boy, I don't know if they belong here. Someone's all tattooed up on their arms, has gauges in their ears. Instantly we think, well, that can't be a Christian. We hear them talk. And when they talk to each other, they say a curse word and we think, that can't be a Christian. And we start looking at these outside things. Car pulls up in the parking lot out in church and you hear this booming bass inside their car. Instantly, we're like, that can't be a Christian, at least not a good one. We are watching each other and looking at the outside, and we're totally not even understanding that the warfare is inside. It is loving on people. It is caring about people. It is coming alongside of people. It is uplifting people. It is showing them God. How was Christ when he sat and reclined at table at Levi's house? Levi, the tax collector, he's Matthew, who writes the book of Matthew. He's at his house with all kinds of sinners, the tax collectors, others, and the Pharisees, the churchy people, looked at him and they were like, well, look at this guy. He's like a wine bibber, and why is he sitting with all these sinners? Look at the way he's living his life, and look at how this looks. Him sitting there in a room full of sinners. Boy, he must be a non-religious man. That's what they thought. By the outward appearance, they looked at Jesus, the Son of God, the perfect man. These human men looked at Jesus and thought, look at what's around him. Look how he's dressed. Look who he's hanging around. He must be no kind of religious man. How many times do we do that to each other? How many times do you feel people are looking at you like that? There's people out there right now who will not step foot in here because of that. Because we see the outside and we don't understand it's the inside. They're hurting. They're needing healing. They're needing help. They just want to be hugged on, loved on, appreciated, understood, sympathized with, empathized with, all other kinds of nurturing concepts and wording I could give you. That's what they're crying out for. Many of them find it at the bar because the church can't treat them well. They walk into the bar and everyone's like, I'm going to buy you a drink. I love you. They hug each other. They woo, and they're all happy. Because what's happening there? They're not judging them for walking into that bar. They're just buying them a drink because they love the person on the inside. That's what we're supposed to do. Our battle's not carnal. It's not of this flesh. It's spiritual. It's the inner man and woman. I am here for the inner you. Like who's in there. You have a tent. You have a body that protects and holds you. But I want to love you, the you inside. Do you understand? No matter what weight you are, no matter what race you are, no matter what background you have, no matter what you've done. That's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about you inside who God loves, who died for. That's you. And so Paul wants us to understand. He says, do you look at things according to the outward appearance? If anyone is conceived or convinced in himself that he is Christ's, let him again consider this in himself, that just as he is Christ's, even so we are Christ's. See, he's like, look at us. See, just like you know you're Christ, we're Christ's. When you look at Paul and you think, man, that guy, he's not anything special, but he is Christ's, which matters. If you put your faith in Jesus, you are Christ's, and that matters. And so it goes on in verse 8, it says, for even if I should boast somewhat more about our authority, which the Lord gave us for edification and not for your destruction, I shall not be ashamed. Let me go through that verse. Even if I should boast about our authority. See, Paul's talking about the authority of the apostles right there. Like, I'm writing you a letter, Corinthian church. I am one of these apostle guys. And he's saying, I'm writing this, but if I boasted about that authority, like God made me this and I have this authority over you, that's not where his boasting is. Because it says the Lord gave it to him. Why? The Lord gave us for edification. Do you know what edification is? It's building up each other. It's uplifting you. It's like putting your arm around my shoulders and holding you up. I'm edifying you. I'm making you feel loved and cared for. Why? Because you are loved and cared for. That's my responsibility. So if I'm given any kind of responsibility by God, it's for that reason. It's not to hold it over you and destroy you, because it says here it's for your edification and not for your destruction. Man, there are so many churches that destroy people. Destroy them. They pound in their head, you're going to go to hell if you keep doing this sin, you sinner. Oh, look at your skirt, it's above your knee, you sinner. Oh, look at the music you listen to, you're going to go to hell, you sinner. Oh, you sinner, you sinner, you sinner. It's destruction, it's anger, it's frustration that is rolling over the top of people. That's not why I'm given authority. See, even I, as a preacher of God's word, I am given some authority. God has permitted me to stand before you up here and give you some lessons. When you come here, you obviously accept the fact Bob will be the teacher. You accept it. You're like, I'm going to go. Bob's teaching me. Michelle does not. She's wagging her head back there. No, I don't accept your authority. That's her own sin. But I'm not going to destroy her, even though God will get her. But listen, you submit under the authority of, I'll at least let Bob holler at me for the next 60, 65 minutes or whatever. He talks too long. Should only be like 45 minutes, but here he keeps going. Stop it, Michelle. I tell you what. She's making faces back there. But listen, you at least give me that. You say, okay, Bob, do your thing. Why am I given that authority? To start pounding at your lives and tell you how bad you're living and how you're messing up and wow, you just got a messed up life and you need to fix this, you need to fix that. No, I'm given this authority for the sole purpose of edification and glory of God. Like, I want you to see how messy I am, to understand who God is in willingness to even give me the ability to stand here. That's ridiculous that I'm here. I'm given this to give you the confidence to understand God uses anyone, to uplift you, to make you feel like, okay, all right, I feel accepted. I feel like this God really does love me. And that's the whole purpose of this ministry and of any ministry I am given in authority to give you. I want people to know that you are loved. Really, authentically loved for who you are. I don't care how messy you are. I love you. Michelle, kind of love you. I'm going to still talk to her later. Anyway, I shall not be ashamed, lest I seem to terrify you by letters. Verse 9, okay? So it says, verse 10, here you go. This is what they say about Paul's letters, right? It says, for his letters, they say, are weighty and powerful, but his bodily presence is weak, and his speech is contemptible. That's what they said about Paul. Isn't that crazy? Like when we talk about Paul in the churches today, a lot of times we think of this scholarly, like Pharisee of Pharisees who was trained so well in the ways of the Jew, right? And we think, I don't know about you, but I know I have a habit of making, and I do this with even fictional stories, I imagine who I'm reading about. I don't know if you've done that, okay? And if you've done that, if you've kind of characterized some of these men and women in the Bible, it's amazing to me how we almost do the whole actor on TV thing to them. We make them look good. Like when I see Paul in my mind, I just have always seen a well put together fella, like that's scholarly and knows his stuff, stands strong before the churches because he is Paul. But think about what he's gone through. Shipwrecks, beatings, near-death experiences. Sometimes it says he did die and was raised because God wasn't done with him. I mean, think about this. This guy was beaten, bludgeoned, and he had some misaligned eye or something. You don't get specifically what it is because he talks about, you'd pluck your eye out for me if you could. I asked for God to take this away 3 times, and God said, my grace is sufficient for you. So whatever was wrong with Paul, I don't know how Paul looked. But it sure does not sound like he's a mighty, strong, Herculean type looking guy. But doggone does my mind try to paint that picture in my head, you know? And it says when they looked at him, they're like, this guy's like weak. Look at this guy. When he writes a letter, whoo! I've read his letters. They're the New Testament, a lot of it, right? When I read those, I'm like, man, this guy's got it together. This guy knows his stuff. Even Peter references some of his letters and says, man, those letters of Paul are not easily understood. I mean, these are some deep things of God. But it's amazing when you really take Paul on an earthly type perspective. They were looking at him going, he just looks so weak. He looks like his speech is contemptible. Like, I mean, when he talks to us, have you ever casually talked to Bob? Not everybody out there has. But listen, when I talk to you in a casual manner, I think most all of you understand that my first impression, when I give my first impression, is not, that is a brilliant man who is just so wise in his ways and acts so mature and well put together. Let me tell you something, that is not the impression most people get. This guy's like a little character. This guy's like, he's a crazy man. There's a lot wrong with this guy. I love it, but there's a lot wrong with that guy. And that is the impression that I would give off if you met me in person. And I am a goofball. But that's the thing about Paul. It says in verse 11, let such a person that is looking at Paul this way, okay? It says, let such a person consider this, that we are in word by letters when we are absent, such we will also be in deed when we're present. Paul's like, listen, you can look at me and you can see this like weak little man who doesn't speak very well. But what I write down in these letters, and let me put this to me, when I speak to you out of the Bible, when I teach you out of this book, when I exert this authority God has allowed me to have for a little while here, when I do this, I want you to understand that even when I'm with you in presence, this is power and authority from God. That is the difference. It's the internal growth of being with God. You all can have the same kind of growth. You can have the same building up with God as you gain knowledge of Him. No matter what you look like, no matter what you've been through, no matter what, it's not your outward appearance that matters to God. It's your heart. That's why the greatest commandment to God is love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind. That's the number one thing. And then love your neighbor as yourself, because you need to love on them the way you love God to show the love of God to them. And so it goes on and it says, starting in verse 12, we're getting close to honing in on the main core of this message, okay? This is all building up to my main point that I think God has for me tonight for you, okay? It says, for we dare not class ourselves or compare ourselves with those who commend themselves, but they, measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves among themselves, are not wise. I'm not here to compare myself to anyone else. You should not be spending your life comparing yourself to anyone else. That is not wise. I am not, just as Paul here, it says we dare not. See that expression? Like we dare not. Not just we won't, but dare I. No, I will not even dare to compare or class myself with someone else. Because the next verse shows us where our focus should be. Not on what everyone else is doing. Well, that's a great pastor. I want to be just like him. Boy, that guy can preach. I want to preach just like him. Wow, that guy's life sure looks clean and he does so well. I wish I could be like him. And you look around yourself, and how many of us are depressed or anxious or upset because we're comparing ourselves to someone else around us. I wish I could be more like my mom. I wish I could be more like my dad. I wish I could be more like my pastor. I wish I could be more like this guy or that guy. I wish I could be more like. We say that all the time. If only I would be like. If only I could be like. If only I had like they have. What are we doing? We're looking at their lives and wanting their lives. We're looking at what they have. We want what they have. We're not wise to do that. It says in verse 13, "We, however, will not boast beyond measure, but within the limits